What is going on? It is Jay here with Win the Day with Jay. Look, I've been missing you guys. Been about a 2 week but since our last episode, and I'm so excited to come to you guys and talk about overcoming adversity. Look, overcoming adversity isn't about if you face it. It's about how you'll respond when you do. We've all overcome adversity in life. We've all faced adversity, but sometimes we've failed and we haven't overcome it. I think as adults and as humans, there's so many times when we faced adversity where we didn't know what to do, we didn't know how to overcome it, and we just let it eat us and beat us up and put us in the corner of life, and we're taking blows left and right. So I just wanted to come to you today to share some of my life experiences and talk about adversity because it's a real thing, especially for men, for fathers, for leaders of our household. We experience adversity almost every day, and how you deal with it is a direct reflection of how your family and how your kids, your wife, your spouse will respond and how they'll deal with it. But for moms, for ladies, if you're single, everyone faces adversity. Everyone. Every one of us will face health setbacks, career transitions, failures, losses, moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. So, as I prepared for this episode, I actually recorded it. I went through it. I deleted it because about a month ago, I wanted to release the episode of adversity a month ago, but I had some life experiences that I was dealing with at that very moment that I thought would really help our listeners and our viewers. You know, we as a culture, we face this, but we don't like to talk about it. We don't like to open up. We don't want to be transparent and honest. And look, those of y'all that have been listening to my show know one thing about me is I'm a bit of an oversharer, but I do that because I want to be transparent. I want to be real. I want to help you change your life for a positive manner. And you can't do that without being real and looking yourself in the mirror and be like, you know what? I need to change. So I'm going to deal with one topic, and it's loss. It's near and dear to me. 10 years ago, this coming up July, my brother, Rusty Bradford, 4 years apart. He was my best friend growing up. He was my idol, my mentor. I looked up to him a lot. We were super tight. Those of y'all that know me know how tight my brother and I were. And he took his own life from suicide July 1, almost 10 years ago. His birthday was July 6th. Um, when I tell you that was a challenging moment in my life, not to mention my mom's, my family, my aunt and uncle, my grandparents, my other siblings, his wife, his children, it was an enormously tough time. One of his best friends, which is a dear friend to me, Pat, someone that found Rusty hanging in a hotel room. I don't tell you this as a graphic or trying to be dramatic, or I tell you this to be real. These things happen every day to all types of people, all walks of life. I'll never forget when Pat called me and he said, Jay Bird, he's gone. And when he said that, I knew exactly what he meant. And the feeling of regret, of uh, of heartache, of just hurt, anger, all these things rose up in me. And you might think, what does this have to do with overcoming adversity? Well, that was the first time in my life that I had experienced loss of anyone close to me. And it was in such a horrific, tragic manner. But Rusty's life was such a great example of overcoming adversity. He went through the ups and downs of life. He had some mental illness. He was battling some addiction, and ultimately that's what led to him taking his own life. And I learned a lot about myself, about my close friends, about my family through that loss. You know, I could have just given up. I could have just stopped dead in my tracks, but I had to learn how to move on. I think when dealing with grief, that's another thing about overcoming adversity. If you've had loss, I couple grief and sadness and all of the emotions that come with that in that, adversity. You know, People say, "Oh, it'll get better with time." No, it really doesn't. But you learn how to move on with a new normal of that person not being there. There's been so many times in life I wanted to pick the phone up and call Russ Bucket and be like, "Hey, Rusty, guess what? Your nephew did XYZ, or guess what? Man, I can bench 350 pounds now." And he's not there for me to do that. That was a tough, tough moment in life that lasted years. We're 10 years removed coming up this summer, and I still have times where it takes my breath away. So I wanted to be real. I want to be transparent. I wanted to start this episode of not everyone has experienced something that traumatic, but it doesn't mean your adversity is not the same. See, adversity can kill us and destroy us in all shapes and forms and fashions if we allow it. It ultimately led to my brother taking his own life, which ultimately destroyed things in my family. It destroyed things in his family with his children, his ex-wife, and she's moved on, and the kids are doing great. But it took years for them to deal with it. I know it destroyed the relationship with my earthly father, that was Rusty and I's dad. I want to talk about that adversity and overcoming that in this episode. But I wanted to start off to say, I think there's a lot of people that have experienced loss that have really never dealt with that adversity and the emotions that come with it. And it's the reason why you haven't been able to move on. So I wanted you to know that you can move on. It's just a new norm. It's just a new way of life. You can move on. You can beat that feeling. I promise you, with God's help, with your discipline, with the systems you put in place, with your non-negotiables. And I'll talk about that. But, other people have health challenges. I just faced a health challenge this December. Tore my bicep. I had bicep tendon repair surgery here in Birmingham, Alabama, at Andrews Sports Medicine. Shout out to Andrews, best in the business. That's why people come from all over the country. All the amazing athletes and professionals come here to have surgery by these guys. They're incredible. As you can see, look, I'm out of the brace. I'm fully functional here. I can move. I can do things. And I just got released yesterday, 8 weeks post-op. I can work out. Man, that was probably one of the toughest things I've had to deal with in the last year and a half was overcoming the adversity of not being able to go to the gym when it was such a part of my life. I was going 5 or 6 days a week for the last year and a half. I'm working out, I'm walking every day. But I went to the gym and I did some legs, I did some walking, I sit in the sauna, I sit in the hot tub, but it was tough. There was one moment about 3 weeks ago where it really got me. I felt a little beat up, I felt a little down. And then I remembered, you know what, Jay, you got this. And it's because of my non negotiables that I was able to overcome that adversity of the surgery. You might not think, Jay, well, that's very trivial. That's very minute. No, look, a lot of people, when they have some surgery like that, they just give up and it takes years to get back. I never stopped. The day after my surgery, I woke up at 5 a.m. I did my morning walk, I did my morning devotion, and I didn't miss a day throughout this whole process. And I truly believe with everything in me that that's the reason I was able to overcome that adversity of the surgery and the physical, my body healing. There was days where I didn't feel as great as other days, but ultimately I was able to press on and overcome it. Career transitions. Some of us have faced, and some of you are right now in the midst of a career transition, changing jobs. And I retired from a role I did for 25 years. I'm now with a new organization, which I love. There's been some serious transitions, some adversity. I went from a C-suite office to a little desk in a cubicle. I went from making all the decisions to now going to multiple other people to get things done. There's transition. There's things around that. There was some adversity, but man, I'm right where God called me to be. And if you're listening to this episode or watching and you're going through a career transition, maybe it's like Tammy came on our show and talked about she's this acclaimed, just amazing real estate agent in the Birmingham, Alabama area, just built a real estate practice. and now she's doing artwork. She's in art galleries, and that's her main focus for her business. She still runs her practice, and she's pushed that off. That's a huge career transition. And Tammy shared about that. I urge you to go listen to the episode when Tammy Hallman was on. And shout out to Tammy if you're listening to this. But she was in the midst of a career transition. I think a lot of people in life in your 40s or 50s, you experience this. Or you're early, you're out of college, you're just starting your career, and you don't know, you were working at Chick-fil-A and now you got this corporate job, or you're working with the government, or you're doing X, Y, and Z, and it's a huge transition. But I'm here to tell you, if you have systems and processes and non-negotiables, you can overcome that adversity. So how do you handle it? What about failures? Man, how do you handle failures? I've had more failures than I can count and that I could talk about on this podcast. Um, I failed as a husband. I've failed as a father. I've failed as a leader. But through those failures, I've learned and grown. And I took those failures as an opportunity to improve myself. You know, I love Michael Jordan and his mindset. I love Kobe Bryant. He passed on, but the Mamba mentality. If you guys read Tim Grover's book that he wrote about the closer and the cleaner, and Jordan and Kobe, those guys were cleaners. They wanted to rip your throat out, shove it down your throat, and win. They were cleaners. There's some champions, there's some leaders, but I want to be a cleaner. I want to be a guy where I can get things done, and my mentality is a step above the average. I talk to my kids all the time about failures and how you overcome them. I have an 18-year-old and I have an 11-year-old. My 11-year-old now is starting his little sports career. He's playing basketball and he loves it. He's having fun. He's playing football as well. And I talk all the time about overcoming. I'm like, do you want to be average or do you want to be a champion? Anybody can be average. It doesn't require any effort to be average, but to be a cleaner, it requires discipline, commitment, processes, systems, and non-negotiables. And you got to map that out. And it's very interesting watching this happen in my 11-year-old, because subconsciously he's picking it up. The older brother's got it. He gets up, he makes his bed, he goes and works out, he does these things. He's a cleaner. But we've all faced failures. How do you deal with that failure? Does it just do you have that failure and you just sink your shoulders and you give up? No. You are a man called by God, a leader. Take that failure. Let's turn it around. Let's go kick the day's butt, right? Let's get after it. If you're a lady, take that failure, take those losses, take all these things that happen to you, and let's turn it around as inward motivation. I think people let all these things consume them, and that's why we never get over adversity. The difference between those who grow and those who stall is not a talent or luck, it's mindset. It's discipline. It's the decision to keep moving forward when life becomes uncomfortable. Man, how many look, it was 20 degrees yesterday on my morning walk, and I got up and did my non-negotiable. It was slightly uncomfortable. This morning it was 14 degrees. I mean, I had the ski mask on. I mean, my mask froze up from me just breathing through it. It was uncomfortable, but that's where we grow, in that uncomfortableness. If any of you guys that are listening or viewing this work out, when you go to the gym, your muscles don't grow right there. They grow from days after you working out, because you're breaking it down. Your muscles become uncomfortable. You're breaking the fibers down. They start to regenerate. Blood, oxygen, all these things go back to it. Then that's when they start to grow. And then over time, they develop conditions for that growth. It's the same way in your life. The more you fail and the more you don't give up, the more you condition yourself to deal with failure. Man, let me tell you what, that right there, that's good stuff. I want you to write that down. The more you fail and the more you deal with failure, the more you condition yourself to grow through that failure. Man, I can tell you I'm 44 years old, and I'm just at the stage in my life where I've learned over probably the last 3 to 4 years where I've learned that trait. Adversity doesn't define you. Your response to it does, though. I know you all know someone, or it might be yourself, like me previously. When I had adversity, I didn't deal with it very well. I went to a bag of Doritos. I went to Crystal's Burgers. I went to, cold beer, whatever the outlet might have been. That's what I went to, to make my flesh feel better. But it didn't help the problem that I was facing. Some ladies like to go shop and spend money when they're facing adversity or they're stressed or whatever. Some people like to not eat. Some people, there's all variety of issues of how people deal with it. But if you deal with that adversity head on and you tackle the problem with processes and systems and non-negotiables, that's how we overcome it. You overcome adversity by controlling what you can control. Sometimes in life, you're going to have adversity where, you know what, you simply have no control over it, but you can control your attitude and your outlook. Those of you who know me know I'm big on attitude and outlook. And a lot of my close friends think I just wake up and I'm positive Patty every day. By nature, I'm a pretty positive person, but there's times in my life where I'm not positive, where things get me and I have to take a step back. I talked about Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory, and man, that has helped me so much in life. But you know what? The most important thing that's helped me is starting my day with the Lord, doing my devotion and reading scripture every day. And what that does is that gets the Spirit of the Lord in me so I can handle things that are going to happen. Does it mean I always respond correctly? No. My wife will tell you. If I ever have my wife on this show, she is going to let you know I have a lot of things that are not great about Jaybird, but there's a lot of things that are good. And there's a lot of things I'm learning about. But you know what? My wife is my barometer of how I'm doing because she is the most honest person to me. And I love her for that. And that's why she's my wife. That's why she's my best friend. That's why she's who she is in my life. And you got to have some accountability with yourself. Control what you can control. I try to control my attitude and my outlook. Those are two things that I know I can control. Leaning on your faith in your family and your community. I talked about that. I lean on my wife a lot, to be honest, to give me an honest assessment. I might not always like what she says, and sometimes I might even disagree and try to persuade her, but ultimately, she's normally right. And lead on your faith. I honestly don't know how people make it without God in their life. Because man, when I went through that, losing my brother, when I went through, my earthly father just basically not being part of my life, when I went through all these things without God in my life, I don't know where I'd be today. And so build that faith up. But you can't lean on your faith if you don't know who God is. I tell people all the time, especially those that are close to me. I talk to my family and my friends, my close family. I talk to them about, oh, I don't have this many friends, right? To have a friend, you got to be a friend. To know God, you got to talk to God. You know, I, if I didn't talk to my wife ever, our relationship would not be great. But it's a great relationship because we talk, we communicate. I communicate probably a lot more than she does. I'm a talker, and she listens, and then she'll communicate. And it's funny because the roles are reversed. I like to talk. That's why I'm doing a podcast. That's my gift. I like to communicate, and we always laugh. But you got to communicate with God to have that faith relationship, that foundation. So showing up daily, even when you don't feel like it, that's another way to overcome adversity. You're like, Jay, come on. What does that mean? That means getting your tail up at 5 a.m. if you got a non-negotiable to go work out or to go walk or to go do your devotion, getting up and doing it. Get up and get after it. Show up daily, even when you don't feel like it. You think I wake up every day and I just feel, woo, it's 4:30. This morning I woke up, the house was warm. I had a fire going last night, all night in the living room. The fire was still kind of smoldering. Ambers were going this morning when I got up at 4:30. It was toasty in the house, a warm 68 with the heat on. And those of y'all that might think 68 is cold. When you got the heat, 68 is pretty warm, okay? It's warm. And man, it was 14 degrees outside. I opened the door to let our dogs out before I took them on their walk, and I felt the Arctic blast come in. You think I felt just woohoo, so pumped up in that moment? No, I didn't feel like going on my walk. But after I did my walk, I thought, you know what? I feel great. So show up daily, even when you don't feel like it. Every hard season in life that you have is shaping you for something greater if you let it. How many of you have had these things happen in your life where you didn't glean anything from it? You didn't take any responsibility. Number one, it's probably why we didn't learn from it. But number two is you didn't ask yourself, what can I learn from this? If we truly look at these situations in life and we allow it to shape ourselves, that's where you overcome that adversity. So the question isn't will you face adversity? We all know we will. How will you handle it when it shows up? Will you rise up? Will you rise up no matter what happens in life? I'm here to tell you, as a man, as a leader, as the head of my household, I'm going to rise up and kick it right in the teeth. You know why? That's not bragging. That's not being arrogant. That's being, you know what? I know who God's called me to be. And at the end of the day, I'm going to take God's word. I'm going to take the gifts he's given me. I'm going to take my earthly knowledge of what I've learned about adversity, and I'm going to put my systems and processes, my non-negotiable, and I'm going to go kick the freaking day in the butt because that's what I'm called to do. And I urge you, you might be thinking, Jay, well, that's great. You know, you've lost 160 pounds and you got your body. You think it was easy when I weighed 360 pounds to get up every day? No, I got up every single day and I could barely walk 100 yards. But I kept overcoming. I kept overcoming. I kept overcoming. And now today I sit before you, a man that's pretty physically fit. I can do some things in life. I got to get a lot better. I have goals and some more physical ambitions that I want to accomplish. But I'm here to tell you that nothing that's coming in my life is going to beat me or my family because I know and understand how to overcome the adversity. Because ultimately, God is in control. So why do I want to worry and fearful and be scared? God's here to take care of us, but we have to allow him, and that's knowing him. When it shows up, will you rise? I'm going to pause right there for a second. Will you rise? Get up today. Make your non-negotiables. Go back to episode, I think it's 3 or 4, and listen about non-negotiables. Because without non-negotiables, you won't be able to overcome this adversity. Make your non-negotiables. Determine who you are. Determine who you want to be. Determine all these things, because when you face this adversity, it's your mindset, it's your discipline, and it's the decision to keep moving forward with the systems you put in place is how you're going to overcome it. It might be divorce. It might be loss. It might be bankruptcy. Hey, I've overcome that too. 25 years old, went through bankruptcy. Shocker. You might all think, what? Are you kidding me? Yes. When I tell you I faced some adversity, I have faced some adversity, and my wife indirectly has because of the decisions I made when I was young. And I was an idiot. I didn't know what I was doing. So we faced it. We've come out, and now look what God has done with our life. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But I went through years of adversity. And I'm here to be transparent to tell you, you're going to face financial issues. You're going to face marriage issues. You're going to face loss in this earth because we're in a falling world. We all die earthly at some point. You're going to face job situations. You're going to face relational adversity. You're going to face all types of adversity. And if you don't have these systems in place and these non-negotiables and the internal fortitude to be like, you know what, I'm kicking that thing in the A right now, then it's going to beat you. And then what happens is a month turns into 3 months, 6 months, a year. 2 years from now, you're still dealing with the same problem. How many of you know people, when you talk to them, they're still talking about the same bull crap that they were talking about a year and a half ago, the same problem? I don't have time for people like that in my life. You know why? Because I'm moving in the right direction. I'm here to tell you, overcome adversity and move on, because you're going to keep facing adversity. The more greatness that you're trying to do in life, the more you want to be a cleaner, the more adversity you're going to face. It's funny how that happens, you know. The more the more the more positive things I do, the more adversity I face, but the more I'm able to overcome that adversity, and I don't even worry about these situations. You know, I mean, um, my buddy Pastor Mike Jr., PMJ, I know him as Mike. Go look him up, PMJ. He's got albums out. He's a pastor of Rock City Church. Um, dude's amazing human being. But I saw a little reel he posted the other day, and he said, when you get taken to the emergency room and say you had a heart attack and you pass away, and they got the little shockers on you, and the little screen is a flat line, and you're just flatlined. That means you're dead. If they have a pulse on your heart and it's flat line, that means you're no more living. You're not living anymore. You don't want your life to be a flat line. That means you're not living. If your life is just this flat line of all roses, creams, happiness, joy, there's no excitement. You want your life to be what your heart rate is, up and down, up and down, up and down, because in those ups and downs, you have peaks and valleys in life. You have mountaintops that you've accomplished great things, and you go down, you face some adversity, you overcome it. But that's what builds excitement. That's what makes character. That's what makes happiness and joy. And look, anyone that's been married for more than 30 days is going to tell you, if they're honest, there's ups and downs in marriage. My wife and I will be married 25 years coming up this next June. 25 years. There's been some ups and downs. There's been bankruptcy. There's been foreclosures. There's been repossessions. There's been buying homes. There's been buying things. There's been loss and death of my brothers, her dad, my grandmother. There's been heartache. There's been heartbreak. There's been all these things. And I'm here to tell you, I overcame adversity and I know how to deal with it because I went through things and I didn't deal with it the right way. Fast forward to the last 5 years of my life, I know how to overcome them. In this last year and a half, I really know how to overcome them because then I have processes, I have systems in place. I can handle whatever life throws at me. I've had $100,000 in the bank and I've had negative $5,000 in the bank. You know what? That money does not make you happy. Your true happiness comes from fulfillment in life with your family, with the Lord, with your true joy, your kids, your work, your life, your friendships. That's where you find joy and contentment. So I'm here to tell you that you're going to face adversity, and how you respond with your systems and your processes is still going to determine if you overcome it. So look, I hope this episode helped you. I I waited to record this because there was a lot of things I want to share. Opened it up sharing about the loss of my brother because, addiction, suicide, that's a real thing in our society. And people that want to stick their heads in the sand and act like it doesn't happen. It doesn't matter your financial status, your race, ethnicity, all that. There's no addiction does not care. That happens in every family. So I wanted to be transparent and let someone know that if you're facing that right now, or if you have faced that, help that person overcome adversity. You don't want them to end up like my brother taking his own life because he didn't have those systems and processes in place to overcome what he was dealing with. I talked about financial bankruptcy. Hey, get your finances in order. They're not going to fix themselves. You got to have a plan. Talked about relationship. I talked about career changes. I talked about physical. You got to have a plan and processes to overcome any of this adversity. So I hope I inspired you today. I tried to be real, try to be honest, try to be transparent. So I hope that this episode reaches you and touches you, because how great is it to talk to someone else, be like, hey, you know what, Jimmy, I faced that in life and here's how I got through it. And you're able to tell them, you're able to help them, you're able to minister to them. I can't help anyone if I never overcame my adversity. I wouldn't be sitting right here right now talking to you. Those of you that know me right now, you have no idea what I went through 20 years ago, 15 years ago, because you know the Jay now. And man, isn't it amazing how God works in our life? I am a true example of God's grace, mercy, and just total transformation, whether it be physical, mental, spiritual, all those things play a part. So go out today, tackle that issue, kick it in its teeth, and say, you know what? I'm going to be a cleaner. I'm going to have that mama mentality. It's not going to beat me because I'm a man of living God. And you know what? I have power and authority to overcome these things. You might need help. You might need systems. You might need processes. You might need counseling. You might need whatever the case may be. Do it. Don't let it beat you. Don't be another statistic that says, you know what? Old Jimmy just dealt with adversity and it just ended up eating him alive. Or old Susie, you know what? She hated men and she got that divorce and she's never found love again. No, you can do it. So, hey, look, thanks for joining us today. And I'm excited about this episode. Look, reach out to me. Go follow me on Instagram at jbradford81. We're on YouTube, the Jay Bradford Show, on Spotify, Podbean. Look, go check it out because I'm excited about this year and some of the guests I have coming on. Have some incredible guests that we're going to talk about some amazing topics and be life changing because the whole purpose of the Jay Bradford Show is to win the day, to win the day. All right. My mantra is win the day, encourage, edify you, help you be the better version of yourself, be the best version of yourself. So go check us out. And thanks for joining me today. This is Jay, and I am out.